All right. Welcome everybody to the FinnFest May webinar. We're going to take a few minutes to let everybody get in. While we're doing that, I'm going to give us all a poll that we can fill out. There's only 4 quick questions, just some fun facts about FinnFest before we get to this month's webinar with Jim Leary. The poll is open. So I'll give you guys about a minute while we let everybody trickle in. Thanks again for making it to the May webinar. My name's Kaylee Carden. I'm here with FinnFest, helping with the webinars and helping promote the 2023 festival that will be in Duluth, Minnesota, July 26th to 30th. Oh, got you some hints for the poll. All right, we already have 50 people almost in here. Great to see so many people showing up to our webinars month after month. Thanks to our FinnFest fans and committed members. 15 more seconds, I'll close the poll, and then we'll get started. All right. Hi, Roman. Thanks for asking your question. Yes, there will be a recording of this presentation, and it will be on YouTube immediately or within a few weeks after. Thanks for asking. Last month's webinar is still waiting to be posted, and it will be to YouTube hopefully within the next week. And if you're signed up for the FinnFest email list, then you'll get an email when it's posted and it's live. I'll put a link in the chat in a few minutes to make sure that everyone can sign up. As for the poll, first answer, July 26th to the 30th. That's when we hope to see all of you in FinnFest at the festival. Make sure you check out the link that I'm about to post in the chat that has all the information that you could ever want regarding the festival. Slowly but surely, it's getting more full, the schedule, and there's getting more events, more talks with some prestigious people from different backgrounds. And we look forward to seeing you there. Just click on that link, scroll down a little bit, and you click on schedule, and you see the entire full schedule for the 4 days of the festival. And for the poll, so the first answer, like I said, July 26th to the 30th. What do we celebrate on June 24th? Juhannus, or Midsummer? The third question, where is FinnFest 2023? I gave that away, Duluth, Minnesota. And the first official FinnFest was in 1983. All right. With that, we will move on to getting started with this month's webinar. Once again, I'm Kaylee Carden. Thank you everyone for attending, and I would like to warmly welcome you to this month's webinar. Today's topic is Finnish American folk music. James Leary, known to most of us as Jim, is not only an expert in folklore studies, but we are fortunate to have him as the current vice president of FinnFest USA. He is an emeritus professor of folklore and Scandinavian studies at the University of Wisconsin-Madison, where he co-founded the Center for Study of Upper Midwestern Cultures. An award-winning author and a 2-time Grammy nominee for the Best Album Notes, he is the curator of FinnFest 2023 Folk Arts Programming, which is called Finnish American Folk Music. All tradition is change. We will hear all about the programming at the end of this webinar, so stay tuned all throughout and looking forward to hearing about it all at the end, everything that Jim has planned for us. Thank you, Jim, for being with us, and the floor is yours.
Okay, take it away. Kaylee, I have the poll showing up on my screen. Is that going to disappear or?
It will disappear in a second.
Oh, okay, cool. Well, thanks everybody for turning up. I'm pretty excited. Been working on this presentation for a little while, and I'm going to try to do 2 things. One is to really talk about Finnish American folk music and offer different glimpses of it through time, what we know, how we know it. But I also want to question the notion of folk music as being immutable or unchanging. In fact, it's always changing in small ways. There's always a dynamic, a constant dynamic between tradition and change. And in fact, tradition really withers away if it isn't invested with new ideas and the creative contributions of diverse individuals as they address their circumstances, whatever they might be. So tradition is fundamentally that part of the past that we use to engage the present and kind of look to the future. On this landing page, or the opening slide, you can see a cool photo that I made in 1981 at the, as they say it in Wisconsin, the Ulu Midsummer Festival with Sisu up on the basketball backboard. In the foreground is, back in 1981, is Leroy Lochte on piano accordion from the Ulu Hotshots, and the wonderful drummer and singer Bill Kangas is in the background. And let's see, my slide is not advancing. That's weird.
Yeah, are you able to click or push on the space bar?
Yeah, that's what I'm doing. I'm still getting the poll on my screen. I don't,
Yeah.
oh, there we go.
There we go. Yeah, because I checked, the poll shouldn't be showing anymore, but now it removed.
Maybe I guess I can do an X. Maybe okay, there it's gone.
There we
Okay,
go.
sorry, folks, technical difficulty. But I do want to dedicate this to Bill Kangas, who we lost in February. I had hoped to see him at the festival. Just a wonderful all-around person. I think quite a few of you out there may have known him or known of him through his work with the Ulu Hotshot. So we'll bear him and a lot of other gone but not forgotten musicians in mind as we go through this. Strange. I'm just I pressed it again and it's not what's going on?
It's not changing.
It's
Maybe
not advancing.
Stop sharing and you can reshare it.
Okay. So how do I do that?
You click the escape, sorry, on your computer.
Okay.
That'll probably be the easiest way.
That's very strange. That's frozen too. Folks, we we did, everything went fine in rehearsals. Okay. It's just like there's a lag. I'm getting a lag.
Yeah. But now we can see that you removed that you moved back
okay.
to before you share the presentation.
All right, let's try again. So as Kaylee mentioned, I'm a folklorist. I've been doing fieldwork since the 1970s. I grew up in the upper Midwest, and that's where I've done most of my work. This is a photo from 1980 in Muckwa, Wisconsin. It's an Ojibwe or an Anishinaabe word meaning bear, but it's largely Slovaks who settled there, and I can be seen setting up recording equipment back in the corner. And over the years, I've worked with lots and lots of different cultural groups and wonderful performers in the upper Midwest. Just showing some here from across the screen. Puerto Rican, Walloon, Belgian, Hmong, Croatian, and then down at the bottom from Norm Dombrowski and the Happy Notes, a great Polish band, the Austrian and Swiss singers, the Singing Tills, and also a terrific Ojibwe drum maker from Mole Lake, Joe Ackley. But I've done a lot of work, especially in the from the late 70s into the 1990s, with Finnish Americans in the so-called Superior Land region, which you can see here. It's the heartland of Finnish American settlement, extending from the Upper Peninsula of Michigan westward across northern Wisconsin into Minnesota, including the the Mesabi and Vermilion Ranges in the North Shore and going up toward Thunder Bay in Canada. And the first Finnish American I recorded and met as an old-time musician was Walter Johnson from Oulu, who was a fantastic singer and drummer with his wife, Eiley, playing piano accordion, entertained for many years in the Oulu area. This is a photo I fortuitously made. It was about 20 below zero. The first time I met him in 1979, and he dug out his, he just come from work, but dug out a picture of one of his wonderful record albums. Thanks to the Library of Congress in Washington, D.C. and a loaner program of high quality recording equipment, I was able to get a stereo Nagra reel-to-reel tape recorder on loan in 1981 and kind of make a trip to get high quality recordings. And one of the people I recorded, I had met earlier in 1976 at the Smithsonian's Festival of American Folklife, now gone, Helmer Toiros from the Aura area. And this is a recording I made of him in his kitchen. I'll just play a little bit. There we go. Okay. Now Helmer was playing fiddle, which was an instrument that quite a few immigrants played when first coming over in the late 1890s and early 20th century. But by the time Helmer was playing, and this is late 70s, early 1980s, there weren't that many fiddlers around. There was George Nosiainen and Ed Lauluma. All of them are gone. But the button accordion was still quite vibrant, and one of the most beautiful tunes I've ever heard was played by Reino Mackey, a colorful figure, ran the Onion River Tavern between Washburn and Bayfield along the Chequamegon Peninsula in northern Wisconsin. Played the three-row button accordion, and this is a beautiful tune, Murarin Valsi, the Mason's Waltz, and I like it not only because of the breathy and lovely sound of the button accordion, but also his fingers, which you can hear clicking on the keys, and I'll play just a snatch of that. Oops. Sorry. I meant to pause that. But Helmer, who we just saw, Reino Mackey, Jingo Vachon, who we'll hear from in a moment, were all children of immigrants. Their parents' generation had come over. Helmer grew up in the Aura area, meaning plow in Finnish, an agrarian settlement. Ray Mackey was part of the Finn settlement, and this is a settlement near Washburn, Wisconsin, where a lot of Finns who had first come over and worked under rather dreadful conditions in the mines on the Minnesota Iron Ranges came by boat. There weren't roads, and they sailed in there and made their place and had a little hall, and along with house parties, and that's where Ray picked up these tunes. Jingo Vachon was the youngest child of an immigrant couple. Her father, who lost his first wife, Jingo was the child of the second wife, had been a a homeless beggar in Finland, came over seeking a new life, and she settled in Toivola, meaning Vale of Hope. There were a lot of Copper Country Strike refugees who also came by boat and sailed into Misery Bay. Here she's singing in Tri Mountain, Michigan, where Lempi Laminen, a childhood friend, was living with her husband Vaino, and their son Howard joined in a session. And this is a song, an old Ostrobothnian folk song. Jingo called it Sian Tapayeset, about the killing of a big pig. And I'll just play the first couple of verses.
Ja isossa talossa, kun sikkaa tapettiin, niin paljon oli nylkijöitä. Kolmasti päivässä lämpesi sauna ja aina oli kylkijöitä. Hei, kolmasti päivässä lämpesi sauna ja aina oli kylkijöitä. Sian tappomiestä oli, sutta oli, pientä oli karvareita ja muita. 12 akkaana vaan pakkaa patojen alle puita. Ei 12 akkaana vaan pakkaa patojen alle puita.
Whoops. Okay, now Jingo was playing this not on a fiddle or a 3-row button accordion or a kantele. She was playing a 12-string guitar, an instrument that was introduced to her, and in this country it's associated often with performers like the African American songster Leadbelly, or also with Roger McGuinn of the Byrds. And Jingo was very much charmed by American hillbilly or country western music. She set about actually doing English lyrics for this song about the big pig, which she followed them with they followed after her Finnish singing of them. And she also did versions in Finnish of Wabash Cannonball and a number of other American hillbilly songs. So there are different changes that are going on here. And interestingly, those songs were picked up by the so-called Finnish Bruce Springsteen, Jukka Karjalainen or E. Karjalainen, when he did his trilogy, Lananyukka, Paratisen Pojat, and then finally Polkabilly Rebels. On this particular recording, which took part of its name from an earlier book that I'd done, Polkabilly, about the fusion of polka and hillbilly music in the upper Midwest, you can see that the first track is Sian Tapulaulo, which is the same song. And he got that from Jingo, even though it had been also circulating in Finland. It kind of persisted at the periphery of Finnish song in Finnish America. And Jukka, by coming over here, met Jingo, got that. And he also, you can see some credits here, several of them, for the Battle of New Orleans, the traditional song that Johnny Horton had a hit with in the 1950s. Jingo did Finnish words for that, and here also her Wabash Cannonball. And Jukka is also singing about Amasa in the UP, and of course now he has a song about Ulu in Wisconsin. Now I mentioned changes going on. This is at a homecoming event in Washburn, Wisconsin in 1981 with different musicians that I've been working with. To my left, I'm kind of there in the middle. I'm holding a microphone over toward Reno Mackey, who we heard a minute ago, and he played a lot of quite old-timey tunes. But on the other end, his brother Hugo, with the piano accordion, was playing this more modern instrument that came into circulation widely in the region, mostly in the 1920s, as an innovative instrument you could play in any key. And Italians were kind of at the forefront of introducing this. Hugo played Finnish tunes on the piano accordion, but he also played Slovenian tunes. He also played some kind of jazzy dance music, as well as country western tunes. Next to him, Olavi Vinturi from Bark Point in the Finnish, another Finnish settlement in northern Wisconsin, where refugees from mines in Minnesota had come by boat to settle. And Olavi played harmonica or mouth organ. His repertoire included a lot of Finnish tunes, but it also included Red Wing and kind of pop and country tunes. And the same goes with Bill Hendrickson, who's immediately to my left there, playing the piano accordion. He was a co-op storekeeper for a while in Herbster, and also a commercial fisherman and a logger. Now, in this image from the North Country Folk Festival in Ironwood, Michigan in 1981, we see Helmer Teuros again, also in the forefront, Bill Koskela, who was from northern Wisconsin, from the Brantwood area originally, ran a tavern then in the greater Chicago area, and then came back up to Ironwood, Michigan, was very much involved along with his wife in little Finland at Kimball. And Helmer and Bill are children of immigrants, but near them are people from the younger generation, now not so young, looking very dapper in the white snap brim hat and matching pants, is the great Oren Tikkanen, who we'll talk about a little bit later. He'll be prominently at FinnFest, but someone who was embracing the old Finnish music, but also conversant with kind of Anglo-American folky music and hillbilly music, as well as the Croatian and Slovenian and French Canadian sounds in the UP. And then we see Joyce Hakala with her grandfather's kantele. The early immigrant generation included quite a few kantele players, but certainly by the 1980s, there were hardly any. Vilosari out in Nacelle, Washington, for example, carrying on that tradition. But it was Joyce who in the upper Midwest launched this, forming the group Koivun Kaiku, who people like Diane Jarvie and Ralph Tutila, among others, performed with. Jerry Hinkle started to make kanteles, and we have really a revitalization of this instrument, thanks in large part to Joyce, who also authored a couple of brilliant books, one of which, Memento of Finland, looked at the kantele in Finnish America, and the other one, The Rowan Tree, looked at the pioneering folk song work of Marjorie Edgar in Minnesota. So things starting to change, younger generations. And in doing the fieldwork that I did in the late 70s and early 1980s, certainly made photographs of musicians, made recordings, but it was also important to kind of set down notes. So when I went out to do field research and interview with someone afterwards, I would try to make notes. And you can see on one side a little visit I made in 1980 to the Silver Star Tavern in Wentworth, Wisconsin, which was run by originally a Iron Range, Minnesota Finn, Ernie Aho, a button accordion player. His daughter Teresa and various of his descendants continue to play, and we'll talk about them in a moment. But at the time, Ernie was running a little tavern in Wentworth, Wisconsin, a little bit east of Superior. And I was just noting at the time a lot of manifestations of Finnish identity in there, including some cool stuff on the jukebox. earlier I showed that image of this little house party with Jingo Vachon on her 12-string with a harmonica rack in Tri-Mountain, Michigan. And every time I made a field recording, I would do an index of what was on there. And you can see just from this little early part, some of these kinds of changes that are going on. Jingo learns Finnish songs naturally from friends and neighbors. She and her friend Lempi go to many mouth organ and accordion dances in Toivola. Their mothers sang in choirs in Finland. Vaino, Lempi's husband, his father played kantele, but Wayno learned from a local Frenchman, a string band musician, and he was playing the mandolin. His son Howard was playing the tenor banjo, and they all also grew up with hillbilly music and pop music as well. In doing the fieldwork, I also was interested in what kinds of materials might support the sustenance, but also some of the changes in Finnish music, or the music played by Finnish immigrants and their descendants. And Bill and Miriam Koskela, for example, had a number of kind of pan-Scandinavian tune books. They also had sheet music, and people had record collections, which included hillbilly and pop stuff and tunes by the Italian piano accordionist Guido and Pietro Dairo, and quite a lot more. I also found some of these really cool little notebooks. One of the people who I met in the Kimball area, and Anselm Andy Polso, was the brother of Sylvia Polso, who performed and toured with Viola Turpin in the late 1920s and early 1930s before going off on her own. And she had a little composition book that her brother had, into which she had written lyrics for Finnish songs, like J. Alfred Tanner's Orpopojen Valsi, or Orphan Boys Waltz. There was also the kind of militant workers song Vapa Venäjä that was in there as well. And very exciting to discover that she had a scrapbook from her days performing with Viola Turpinen, and also Jukka or John Rosendahl. You see these wonderful little images, sometimes newspaper stories with information and background about them, and also photographs, and you can get a sense of some of the places that they were playing, Ishpeming, Marquette, Midway, the Rock Farmers Hall, Nagani Labor Temple, Eben Junction, and so forth. And so whenever one does fieldwork with performers or practitioners of traditional arts, we find that they are engaging their present, they're looking to the future, but they also look to the past, and there are these kind of remnants or vestiges that remain behind that are important to document. In the mid-1980s, I produced a double LP with a big booklet and so forth, based on some of the field recordings. It also has, in addition to Finns, it has Slovaks and Czechs and Swedes and Poles and some of the other ethnic groups in the area, Croatians as well. And in the modern day and age, we can digitize all these materials and create portals. And Kaylee, I sent her a number of links. This is one that has access to all of the fieldwork that I did and other people did as part of a project to document ethnic music in northern Wisconsin and Michigan. And on it, you can find sound recordings, you can find photos like the ones you've been seeing, also little bits of correspondence like this postcard with a self-portrait by Jingo Vachon and a little message that she sent to me. Or you can find historical photos that I came across, often with metadata, and all this material can be freely downloaded as well. Now, happily, I wasn't the only person to do documentation as a folklorist of Finnish American music in the so-called Superior Land of the Lake Superior or Western Great Lakes region. In the 1930s and 1940s, thanks to the Library of Congress's Archive of American Folk Song, and also thanks to some remarkable collectors who felt like to capture the American experience, it was important to go beyond just what had been done before, and that was to document Anglo-Americans, African-Americans, and to some extent American Indians or First Nations peoples. There were some folks who recognized as folklorists that America also had all of these immigrant and ethnic traditions that were worthy of documentation. So you can see standing at a little table playing back is Sydney Robertson from the Bay Area of San Francisco originally, but she was very interested in not only the music from that region, but also falling under the spell of Charles Seeger, the ethnomusicologist. She was interested in recording the larger traditions of diverse peoples in this country. And as part of the Roosevelt administration's resettlement program, she found herself in Minnesota and Wisconsin in the 1930s and set about recording. Marjorie Edgar, who Joyce Hakala has written about, helped her out, and she recorded lots of Finnish tunes, especially on the Iron Range and in Cloquet. In the middle, Helene Stratman Thomas from the University of Wisconsin did some recording in the Duluth Superior area. And then Alan Lomax, the famous folklorist best known for his work with Southern traditions and world music traditions, did a stunning set of field recordings in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan with Finns in 1938. I put together a lot of these recordings, or a selection of about 175 recordings from the 30s and 40s, into a sort of massive set of liner notes called Folk Songs of Another America, field recordings from the Upper Midwest. And it was a revelation to many people who discovered it, because it showcased 25 different languages, including Finnish and various dialects. And I did get a Grammy nomination for Best Album Notes, losing out to Joni Mitchell, but what the heck, I had a good time at the event. All of the songs for this and tunes again are up through a link that Kaylee is posting, and you can listen and freely download. And the book of liner notes is available as a relatively inexpensive paperback. I should say, on that project, I had tremendous help with the Finnish stuff from Hiller Joy Virtanen, who located a lot of next of kin of performers and helped with biographical information. And also Tom Dubois helped a lot with transcribing the original lyrics in Finnish, including Finglish, and then setting down English language translations and little notes to them. We can also get an earlier glimpse of Finnish American music from commercial recordings that people like Viola Turpinen and Hiski Salama, Arthur Kullander, Katri Lami, many others, made in the early decades of the 20th century, particularly in the 1920s. And we have another portal through the University of Wisconsin Mills Music Library that features these 78 RPM recordings. And here you can see one of these pages where you get high quality scans of the label, in this case, the great song about an immigrant experience, Savan Poyan American Tulu, by Hiski Salama, and where you see the little sound wave things you can actually listen to, stream, or download the audio. Now, in doing fieldwork with music, of course, it was inevitable to encounter all kinds of other cultural traditions, whether rag rug weaving or sauna vita making, or the making of krapsu or panakaku and filia and fruit soup, or cedar baskets, beautifully done, close-fitting log work, a brilliant bobbing boat is also used in Finland and that part of Northern Europe for going out on the ice and still having a boat, but also a sled. A little comedy from Oulu with Johan Hissa and Rodney Lati playing Sulo and Rauha Kantapa, a Inergakti, a woman involved with reindeer husbandry, and a Finnish lumberjack's set of miniature logging tools put into a pint bottle. Now, you'll get a glimpse of all of that, folk arts, folk music, folk culture, as it is happening today through our showcasing many wonderful artists, producers, and the work of related folklorists at FinnFest in Duluth. We're going to have films, we're going to have exhibits, we're going to have tours, we're going to have lectures and panel discussions with plenty of opportunity for question and answer, mingling with the experts and the performers, a series of concerts and dances and demonstrations. So in the rest of the time here, before we turn it over to Q&A, I want to just give you a little preview of what's happening. And of course, I have to thank our funders. This is not stuff that, just happens out of the goodness of people's hearts. We're trying to raise money and keep this enterprise afloat. And thanks to the American Scandinavian Foundation, we've had some support for the folk arts programming. We also have a grant from the National Endowment for the Arts, traditional and folk and traditional arts, and the University of Wisconsin, which has a sustaining Scandinavian folk arts in the Upper Midwest program, is also underwriting and assisting with especially the folk arts and crafts elements of the project. Here they are at Midsummer up in Toivola with the bonfire. The UW folks will have a wonderful traveling exhibit that's kind of pan Nordic with Finns, Sami, Swedes, Norwegians especially, and this will be on display during the duration of FinnFest, something that has come out of field research that they've done in cooperation with the arts councils in Minnesota and in Wisconsin. There will be a number of tours, very exciting tours. One of them will go to Oulu, Wisconsin, and this is supported by the folks at University of Wisconsin-Madison, a chance to visit with people at the Outdoor Museum, the Oulu Cultural and Heritage Center, that includes the restoration work of Dwayne Lottie, and he'll be talking and demonstrating on the site there. We're going to have 4 days of films, kind of all day during the daytime, and we're going to start out on Wednesday with some retrospectives of classics. The woodcut that, or actually linoleum cut. My daughter made the cut, so I've got to get it right. Comes from an image on film by Alan Lomax. He actually traveled with a bulky silent Technicolor film camera, along with huge disc cutting equipment and microphone and blank discs when he recorded Finns in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. We were able to put together sound recordings and voiceover from his field diaries with the original film footage, and made a 20-minute film. We showed a rough cut, Guha Shankar, the co-producer, and I, at 2013 FinnFest, but this is the finished version. About the same time I was doing the 1980-81 fieldwork, the great Michael Lokkonen was involved with documenting the cooperative nature of Finnish settlements in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, and especially interviewing old timers. And he made a couple of classic films, one with Tom Davenport, the tremendous filmmaker from Virginia. One is Finnish American Lives, looking at the Vuranma family of the Ironwood area, 3 generations of the family. Of course, you see Michael in his looking very cinematic graphic up there. And the other one is Tradition Bearers, that shows Jingo Vishan, Art Moilanen, the great piano accordion player from Mass City, as well as Katri Sari and John Toivonen, respectively, rug makers and wood carvers from Minnesota. Down below in the center, the late Tom Venom, ethnomusicologist for the Smithsonian and a Minnesotan by birth, went up to the Iron Range in 80-81 and made a fantastic film at Laskiainen and Palo, Everyone is a Finn. We'll show that. And then a more recent film by Ted Pellman and WDSM TV, focusing on the fantastic late and lamented dialect singer Bobby Arrow, known best for Highway Number 7. And his son Mike will be there, along with Ted Pellman, the filmmaker, and of course Michael Lokkonen, and I will also be present. Michael, he just can't stop the man. He made 5 quite recent films on rug weaving, chip carving, this matika, the American Finlander lobster and related pies and so forth. The recently deceased innovative kantala player Melvin Kangas, and then a film that focuses on Oren Tikkanen and his many connections as a Yooper Creole, someone who combines musical strands from many cultural traditions. And also on hand at FinnFest will be some of Oren and his band, the Backroom Boys, but some other performers we'll see at FinnFest who are featured in the film. Will also be here be in Duluth in 2023, and that includes Ralph and Jana Tutila, Dennis Halme, and Al Recco. And that'll be Thursday. Hillary Joy Vertinen made these films with Michael. She'll be on hand, and so will Alex Meyer, who did the superb videography and editing. So 5 new films. Another stellar filmmaker is Kelly Saxberg, who often works with her partner Ron Harpel, a historian coming out of Thunder Bay, associated with the Finnish Labor Temple up there. And she has made some wonderful films over the years. We'll see a reprise from Under the Red Star that focuses on the Labor Temple up there. Letters from Karelia and The Lakehead at War, a film about the poppies related to Finns during World War I and also later in the 30s. But she's making contemporary films as well with First Nations people in Canada, including the Oji Cree. And another film that is quite timely, looking at the global economy of pulp mills, something I can relate to. I wielded a spud peeling popple bolts for the Excelsior mill in Rice Lake when I was a teenager. And there are pulp mills in Sapmi, in Canada, other places that have environmental implications that are explored. And so Kelly and Ron will be on hand with their films. And then from the UP, Kristen Oyaniemi, who has done some films commissioned by the Finnish Heritage Center in Hancock on the Bruce Crossing Co-op and on the activist Sirka. But she also is doing a new series on small town basketball in the mostly Finnish American community with mostly Finnish American players, both boys and girls, or young men and young women in the UP. And then she's done a number of collaborations with Anishinaabe or Ojibwe people, including with folks at the Bad River Reservation about wild ricing, and is currently working with folks at Lac Vieux Desert also on ricing. And Kristen will be there on Saturday. We'll have a whole array of folk artists, some of whom are featured in films or have been seen on previous FinnFest webinars or are in the UW-Madison exhibit that'll be on display. And so you see the wonderful whimsical and often intricate carving by Pekka Olsen from Tapiola, from Virginia, Minnesota, Alana Mayala with Himali, this wood shaving ornament work. And if you recall the brilliant webinar Lisa Vitala did, she will be there with her rag rugs at FinnFest as well. And in addition to demonstrating, there'll be some on stage in the Tory sessions with all of these folks talking about some of the nuances of their tradition and their own background as well. And we'll have some instrument makers. I mentioned Jerry Henkel, who has kind of turned things over to his apprentice, Lynn Vesper, and she will be there. And unfortunately, we won't have Alice Marjoram and Claire Zura. It was a little late, given the complicated finances and scheduling, to add them to the program. And I have to admit, I was being economical in doubling up, because Matt DeRocher, who you'll see in the back, not only plays with Oren Tikkanen, who's also pictured, but he makes yohiko, and he is an apprentice, or has been an apprentice of Pekka Olsen, and figures in Michael Lokanen's chip carving film. So kind of a triple threat in that regard. But the yohiko is a kind of an older instrument that predates the kantele, and it is being very much revived in Finnish America and also in Finland. Now, Finnish Americans in the upper Midwest, the Superior Land region, don't exist in isolation. I've mentioned a lot of other musical connections, but there also are another whole set of Nordic influenced artists, especially in the Duluth area, and some of them will also be participating, including Tara Austin, a stunning rose-mauler and painter, the Duluth Fairing Project with Justin Anderson and John Finkel, who are making these Nordic wooden boats, rather stellar work that they've been doing for some time, and also engaged in the sort of ancient Swedish art of hair braided and twined ornaments is Karen Keenan. And they too, along with all of these other folks, will be featured for at least one session on the Tory stage in addition to demonstrating. And so make sure to check them out. Now, we have 2 days on Friday and Saturday of intense lectures and panel discussions with artists. We're having a whole stream of indigenous programming that features Sami and Ojibwe and Finnish Inabe or Finnish Ojibwe artists. And here are a few of the people who are going to be present. Laurel Sanders with her Sami weaving, and she also, her husband is Ojibwe. Her children are mixed in their cultural heritage with that richness, and she also has made material, culture, regalia, and so forth in the Ojibwe tradition. The driving force in the Sami Cultural Center based in Duluth is Marlene Visori, who will also be featured. You see one of her pieces kind of in the top center, and we'll have Ellen Marie Jensen doing a kind of mini course on the Sami culture, and I show a cover of her book, but the drawing, the artwork is done by Kurt Seberg, and Kurt and his brother Eric will also be on hand as artists in the Sami tradition, as will Pam Capon, here seen making a hand drum. Pam's an Iron Ranger, and there's been a strong tradition of revitalizing the old Sami hand drums, which, as you can see, are somewhat similar in construction to Ojibwe hand drums. And we'll have the fantastic Finnish Inabe musician and singer Liz Yakola, who was featured a year or so ago in a webinar, but she will be on hand as a performer. And I think there's also a tour over that involves her earlier in the FinnFest sessions. I'm really excited about these two musicians who draw intensely on their experience in the upper Midwest, which includes a strong dose of Finnish music. They have been immersed in folk music, but they're also exploring new possibilities. Laurel Primo comes from Amasa. Her father and mother, Dean and Betty, had a little group called Whitewater. They played a lot of string band music that also crossed over into the repertoires of some of their Finnish neighbors, people like Tauner Leto, the accordion player in Amasa. And she has gone on to study Scandinavian folk music in Norwegian tradition specifically, but also spent time in Finland at the Sibelius Academy, and is a guitar player, electric guitar player and fiddler who does really interesting things with drones and crossover. And drones, of course, are something that's kind of captivated a lot of the revitalization of traditional music. I think of Irish groups like Lankum and Lisa O'Neill and so forth. And then the looking fiercely intense, the brilliant and wonderful Sarah Pajanen of mixed Finnish and Slovenian heritage, but from the Iron Range of Minnesota, who also has studied Norwegian hardanger fiddle playing as well as Finnish music at the Sibelius Institute, and widely performed, came up through the singing strings, but is also very much a multimedia kind of conceptual artist. And while FinnFest is going on, and a kind of as an added bonus, not too far away from the deck is the Joseph Neese Gallery, where a striking multimedia exhibit of Sarah will be in-house for the duration of FinnFest, and actually before and after as well. Now, we can't forget that I mentioned hillbilly and country music before. And not only has that had an effect on Finnish Americans, but it also has had an effect in Finland. Earlier, there was a webinar by Nate Gibson about Finnabilly music and the impact of American country music in Finland. One of the practitioners of that, Rami Soini, lives in Chicago. He'll be coming up and joining Nate for some discussions, but also to play in the Tory. We'll have a dance on Friday night at Pizza Lucci with Eric Koskinen. Eric, son of actually an immigrant teacher father from Helsinki, has lived in various places, including in the UP and for many years now in Minnesota. And he plays kind of outlaw country, honky-tonk country, but with a northern feel, an up north feel that comes through in a lot of the lyrics and themes of his songs. And we're really excited that he will be there. And of course, we must include a lot of the older sounds, which have their enduring beauty and are also presented in new and innovative ways. I mentioned Ernie Aho and the Silver Star Tavern in Wentworth before, and his daughter Teresa leads the Northern Star Sami Girl. She's a fantastic piano accordion player, very much in the vein of Viola Turpinen, carrying on older songs, but newer material as well. And then in the foreground, Ralph Tutila, kind of with his wife Jana in the back with the bass, kind of leaders of Laloaika song time. And they will be backing up some folk dancers, Kisarit. They will also play on their own on Sunday afternoon, and they will be featured. Ralph will be featured, and Jana in one of the discussions that we'll have. We'll have old time dances on several nights. You know, Teresa Aho is playing on Thursday night, and on Saturday night, Oren Tikkanen on the right with his band, the Backroom Boys, playing this kind of Yooper Creole sound. And then we're going to have the fantastic button accordion, Rich Koski from the Finger Lakes of Minnesota, a kind of a refugee settlement from the mines, mining country of, in Rich's case, the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, and settled in the Finger Lakes, and has performed there most recently with a couple of young apprentices, Kristen Mackey and Michael Ludgate, and they will be opening for Oren and the Backroom Boys on Saturday night. In the Tory, we'll have a number of sessions featuring Finnish folk dancers. Of course, this is an old tradition. We see a group with a fiddler from Nagani in 1915 in one of the Finnish halls. But Kikkurit on the top, and then down below, Kisarit, respectively from Thunder Bay and the Twin Cities, will be holding forth. There are also a lot of folks, Finnish American folks, who engage the singer-songwriter genre that is part of sort of American rootsy, folky music, but do it with a Finnish sensibility, either songs about Finland or about being up north, or songs in Finnish, sometimes in a comic vein, as Steve Solkola, the brilliant one-man band and also video artist, often does. But then we have Diane Järvi, who is also a kantila player, does and a poet in her own right, does these wonderful deeply visionary and poetic songs, often from a woman's perspective about the Finnish American experience. Eric Peltoniemi, who ran a fantastic record label, Red House Records, has done a number of wonderful Finnish American songs, most notably, perhaps recently, featured in the film Ikiti, The Eternal Road, with his song Punainen, about a red Finnish American. And then from the Duluth area, Brianne Tepler, who does a lot of singer-songwriter songs drawing on her Finnish heritage and kind of living up north on the Riviera of the Arctic Circle. Labor songs and involvement with labor has also been a strong part of Finnish American heritage. In the early 20th century, there was a Finnish immigrant, Matt Valentine, who actually the son of immigrants. He was born in Ashtabula, Ohio, and became active in the industrial workers of the world. He is right up there with Joe Hill, the Swedish immigrant who wrote a lot of famous labor songs, including the Rebel Girl, and a couple of brilliant songs by T-Bone Slim, The Mysteries of a Hobo's Life, and another one based that's kind of a parody of the pop song They Go Wild Over Me, called The Popular Wobbly. At University of Helsinki and the Sibelius Academy, there are a number of scholars, Kirsti Salmi-Niklander, Lotta Lewo, Sayalina Rantanen, who have been interested in T-Bone Slim. They've been working with the labor historian Saku Pinta from University of Manitoba, and also with a grandnephew of T-Bone Slim, John Westmoreland, who has reanimated many of T-Bone Slim's songs, much in the way that folks from Wilco and Billy Bragg have reanimated, and most recently Flogging Molly have reanimated some of Woody Guthrie's classic songs. John will be doing some concerts in the Tory, and the whole group will be doing a workshop or a panel presentation rather. And I'm also thrilled that we'll have Päivi Takala there. She has been working on a documentary film about the great Finnish American accordionist Viola Turpinen, who from the 1920s through the 1950s, before her premature death of breast cancer, barnstormed through Finnish America, recording many fantastic tunes that are emulated and playing in lots of small halls. So we'll have Päivi there, and also Rita Kossi, an exemplary accordionist who is adept with Viola's tunes and also superb in her own right. Started out her career or played in her early days with Vartina as well. We'll be assisted in all of this by some stellar folklorists, in addition to Nate Gibson and yours truly, who I've mentioned before, from the University of Wisconsin, Madison, J.M. Schroeder, Tom Dubois, Marcus Cederstrom, and Mirva Johnson will all be on hand as MCs, and in Tom's case, making a presentation as well about traveling to Sapmi. And unfortunately, Tim Frandy, circumstances, he won't be able to be there, but from the University of British Columbia, Tim provided expert advice on trying to organize the Indigenous stream. We're going to have Kent Randall, a newly placed at Dartmouth College as an archivist, and from the Sami American community, the fantastic Carl Rakkonen, who's done a webinar and is an expert on Finnish American music, will share some of his expertise on Finnish dance music historically, as well as doing MC work. And the amazing Hillary Joy Virtanen will be there in many capacities as a filmmaker, a commentator, and let's hope she gets a new job soon. So that is my lightning fast spiel about folk music as a moving target, and all of the thrilling, multifaceted stuff, and brilliant performers and scholars who will be present for great experiences at FinnFest. So we encourage you to be there. We will see you there. Kiitos.
Thank you so much, Jim, for the presentation. There's been so many compliments in the comment section. Everybody's loving it. They're appreciating the work and tying it into the festival. If you could stop sharing your screen.
Oh yeah.
Go on to the
answers.
I'm also
Okay,
There was your request for the links. I'm going to try to see if we can post them afterward. Nonetheless, they will be posted on YouTube in the comment section or on the caption of the YouTube video. Once that's posted, I'll get that forwarded to the worker at FinnFest that puts up the webinars afterwards and make sure that's there. And I'm also going to try to post them now in a way that's easy to copy and paste. And I couldn't paste it all in one shot of all the links. So I'm going to try to paste it in 2 or 3. So those who are interested in wanting to look at those, yeah, there we go. You can copy those now once we get into the questions and answers. And one last thing before we do that, I want to show you how easy it is to look at the schedule of the festival. So I'm going to share my screen briefly, and then we'll get to the questions. Okay, so here on the FinnFest webpage, it's once you go to finfest.usa, you click on more information, and you get to this page, and you start scrolling down, and here you can find the entire schedule. You see it in this version, but you see the full version by clicking, and you can save a document and then open it up and it will pop up on your screen, and I will share that because it changed to a different document or a separate document opened. So then I'll share that just so you get an idea of what it should look like and how the process goes. But it is very straightforward. There we go. So you can see here the entire schedule with all the information. We will also be posting all of this information in the upcoming weeks. So there's 66 days until FinnFest. So I'm scrolling through this fast now, but just so you get an idea, there's a lot going on. I mean, this is 12 pages long. That shows you just how much FinnFest has invested in making this festival the best it can be in Duluth. So make sure to check that out. And if you have any questions, be sure to reach out to us by email or on social media, and we'll get back to you with any questions that you may have about the festival or about the webinar. And now we can get into the questions and answers. So make sure you can put your questions in the chat or by using the Q&A feature at the bottom of your screen. You can click and then type in a question there. And let's get started. So the first question is, thank you so much, Jim. Very informative. Does FinnFest have planned to come back to the West Coast? Oh, I don't know if Jim has an answer to this.
yeah, I'm not sure I'm the person to answer it, but I would hope so. You know, one of the challenges, and there are others who can speak to this on the board, is how do you build up an infrastructure for an event of this magnitude and complexity, and then take it down and move it to another place. And of course, the pandemic slowed things down, and part of what we were thinking about as the board, and I can't speak fully for the board, but my take on it was, we thought, let's try this for several years, so we don't have to keep reinventing the wheel. And part of it is building up partners and sponsorship and that sort of thing, because if we want to maintain high quality programming, and we also want to have staffing or people with whom we contract who have local expertise, it's very demanding to do the same thing over and over again. And all of us on the FinnFest board are volunteers. I'm raising a lot of money through grants for FinnFest, but I don't get paid anything, and I've been doing this for several years. So that's I would think if infrastructure kinds of things could be figured out, that would be great. This is kind of the art of the possible.
Yeah. And can you do you remember how many years the plan is to be in Duluth?
Well, I'm not completely sure, but it's for the next few years.
The next few years at least will be in Duluth, but that promises us opportunities to develop and further the programming every year. And like Jim said, people working on a volunteer basis. So having it in one place allows easier steps in developing it further year after year. Thanks for that question. The next question is, Dear James, thanks for the presentation. May I ask you about Finnish Canadians? Do you plan to include them in your research?
Yes.
They seem to have rich cultural and music activities, but
Yeah.
much less attention has been given to them than Finnish Americans.
Yeah, I agree with that completely. And I mean, for my own part, I'm from the Upper Midwest, and I've kind of stayed there because that was just like that was comparable to the description of Canada with regard to Finnish American stuff when I started. And as I showed, if you caught the earlier slide, I've also been working with, with Ojibwe and Ho-Chunk and Hmong and Norwegians and Poles. And so I can't do everything in this region. But in this particular FinnFest, we're having Kelly Saxberg and Ron Harpel with their films that are based on the Finnish Canadian experience. We're having Saku Pinta from University of Manitoba. Kirsty Salmi Nicklander has done wonderful historical kind of ethnographic fieldwork in Canada with Finnish Canadians. She'll be present. But I think that going forward, and this would apply to the West Coast as well, I think that FinnFest, I mean, this year there's I suppose a little more of a focus on the so-called Finnish American heartland in terms of population, and it's also a practical focus. But if we get a good start and a good response, then we'll want to try to be able to bring in a focus on the West Coast or on Finnish Canadians or what have you, as appropriate.
Absolutely. And just more room for more research and for future researchers to expand across the Americas. So in Canada and also in South America, Central America. So I know linguistically there's some work with Finnish communities in South America. So it'd be interesting to do.
Well, and regarding music,
perspective.
I mean, there have been fundamentally two researchers doing work, Carl Rocken and myself, for the most part. So we need more. We need more younger people.
Yeah, absolutely. Going on to the next question. What has stood out to you about Finnish Americans? You've worked with many immigrant or heritage communities. And what is there something special about Finnish Americans in particular? What comes to mind or stands out?
Yeah, when I grew up in Rice Lake in northwestern Wisconsin, I didn't know very much about Finnish Americans. My dad, however, he ran the local newspaper, and one of his workers and her husband were Finnish Americans. They had a cabin on Long Lake, about 10 miles north of Rice Lake. And my folks were very much kind of internationalists in a way, especially my mother, and we had exchange students. And when I was in college, we had a wonderful guy, Jouko Vesala from Lahti. He later became a Lutheran bishop and a family counselor, and been able to meet him visit him a few times in Lahti. But I remember when Jouko Vesala was staying with us, we went up to the Oinanen sauna, and that was my first sauna experience. And I thought, wow, this is just fantastic. I loved the sauna. And then just kind of by chance in the late 70s, there were some people at Northland College in Ashland, Wisconsin, particularly Marina Lechecki, Polish, went to St. Scholastica in Duluth. But the National Endowment for the Arts was trying to create folk arts grants programs and opportunities, and trying to have projects go on in different parts of the country. And people up at Northland College, spearheaded by Marina, wanted to do a project to document ethnic music in the region, with Polish and Croatian and Czech and Finnish and Swedish and Norwegian and other peoples up there, but they didn't have a folklorist who kind of knew how to what kinds of lines of questioning and how to do the recording and where to look for contextual information and all that kind of stuff. And I had worked for the Smithsonian's Folklife Festival in '76, and I knew people of the National Endowment for the Arts, so they recommended me for this project, and that's how I fell into it. And once I was there, the Finns, I think they were so remarkable because of these small settlements that had been set up in many cases by people who were refugees from the mines or still in old mining locations, but they were able to replicate elements of the old Finnish American way of rural life, with small farmsteads with numerous buildings and house parties and the handwork and food and music. And it was so vibrant and evident. And of course, it was changing in various ways as I tried to sketch, but it just made a powerful impact on me. And I really enjoyed hanging out with the Finnish American people. And then I have to say, they appreciated some of the work that I did. And I also felt like their culture and music needed to be better known. And I was shocked that no one had ever published a scholarly article on Viola Turpinen, for example. So I did one in 1991 that could have been a lot better. But for me, I think Finns exemplify some of the best about the American immigrant and ethnic experience. They were proud of their cultural heritage. They were often politically engaged. They were welcoming. They were resilient. They really had that sisu, which all of us need to get through various hard times now and then.
What a great answer, and so interesting to hear, and how you kind of just got into it. Like you said, the project fell on you, and then you just kind of, in a good way, got stuck in it and kept on with it up until now. Well, we're glad to have you here. Going on to the next question, we'll take a few more questions. Remember to submit a question if you still have something. You mentioned the rugs. So this is something that particular to Finnish American communities. However, I've also noticed in my research that this is something that stands out particularly among Finnish Americans. Do you know for what reason, or where does this come from? Because we know, for example, German immigrants were also doing rug weaving.
Yes, the making of something useful out of scrap material, and also the need to to have a rug or a carpet on wooden floors. I mean, that's very widespread. The real authority on Finnish American rag rugs, of course, is Yvonne Lockwood, a member of the board of FinnFest, and she has a fantastic book with beautiful illustrations that's available out there. I think it's called the Finnish American Rag Rug or something like that. Should be easy to find, but certainly what I encountered, and Yvonne more so, there was value placed on these rugs by Finnish immigrants and their descendants, something they could make, something they could use, something for the sauna, something that's beautiful, a way of recycling, being self-reliant. And often the rugs were woven by women, but men often built these beautiful wooden looms, which differ from some of the commercially available rug looms. And then it became kind of a symbol of Finnish Americanness, and in some cases a fundraising opportunity. I mean, I have several rag rugs that I really value that I bought at the Iron County Historical Society in Hurley, Wisconsin, maybe 35 years ago, but they're ever present, they're beautiful, they're useful, they're homemade, and people have invested in them. And you can read more in Yvonne's fine book.
Yeah, no, thanks for that answer. I think it's, as a folklorist, maybe not always, I mean, you focus a little bit more on music, so, but interesting to know if you had, because I encountered it a lot myself in my research also. And it's something that's a class that's very popular at the folk art school at Finlandia. So we'll see. Hopefully those courses continue. The next question we have is, do you know a source of recordings of Finnish American music that was played in Fitchburg? I think Maine area from the early 1900s.
Gosh, I know Antti Syrjaniemi's great song about the.
Sorry, not Maine, Massachusetts.
Viola Turpinen Tanssi Kipilä. Antti Syrjaniemi made commercial recordings, and so we do have some of those recordings, and I know there's been other work done there, and that there's been a very important Finnish hall and a strong musical presence, and I wish I knew more. Carl Rockonen can probably provide more of that, and he will be talking in a workshop at FinnFest. And this is again one of the challenges. There's so much out there. There's so much that hasn't been done or hasn't been done deeply, and so there's always more work to be done to kind of pull all these far-flung strands but interrelated strands together. And I think Carl is doing that as much as anybody, or more than anybody rather.
Yeah, that is a great reason to attend FinnFest and be able to talk to Carl live and in person. Another question is asking this because the topic of music is very notable in Finnish American literary text. Sometimes it is viola torpeden, or in more modern settings, more modern Finnish American bands and musicians. Have you had any, the question, this was submitted in two different boxes. So have you had any experience with Finnish American literature and Finnish American authors besides, I'm not sure how to pronounce this, Vakon?
Oh, Jingo Vitalov. Yeah, she married a French Canadian. I'm not as well read as I should be. I love Lynn Leitala's down from Basswood. I think it's one of the finest. Could you call it a novel? I guess you could call it a novel. It's a lot of interrelated stories, but it's brilliant, and Finnish culture as well as this kind of creolized culture with Croatians and miners as well as Ojibwe comes into it. That's fantastic. I love some of Diane Jarvie's poetry, and there are probably other writers that I'll think about as soon as this is over, but those spring to mind.
Always how it
away.
goes. Awesome. Thank you for the answer and for answering all the questions. The last thing is, if you could you mentioned several times that there's so much work to be done, and maybe it's been touched on, but it's not been done in depth. What is something that some advice or something that you would say to young Finnish Americans, Finnish Canadians, or any young people who may be interested in recording these type of stories and collecting these histories?
Well, I think the best thing is to start. When I first started to record, some people would say, well, you should have been here 20 years ago or something. You would have gotten old so-and-so. But I couldn't go back in time. Looking back, 45 years ago to when I did start, a lot has changed. I'm really glad that I got the documented those people, and those people had memories. Some were born in the 19th century, and so you connect, and so you start with what interests you, with what you know, with who you know. This isn't a Finnish American example, but the first person I interviewed was my old Irish American neighbor, growing up in northern Wisconsin, who was born in 1885, and his folks were immigrants. Wow. And he'd worked in the woods, and I'd known him since I was 5 years old. And I finally sat down. He was almost 90 years old, and I recorded a whole lot of great jokes and stories from him. And awesome. And I think it's also important for people to draw on who they are and where they came from. And one of the exciting things now, I think, is in the upper Midwest, there for people who are interested in so-called folk music, mm-hmm. They're not necessarily looking outside the region. They are to some extent, but they're realizing there are all these resources here, and there's all kinds of complexity, and mm-hmm. So some of these songs and tunes are getting new life. So yeah, I would say just start with what you know and love. Start where you are and with who you are and who you're connected to, and seek advice, be curious, and go for it.
Well, thank you so much, Jim, for your time and for this wonderful presentation, and for your advice to all of our potential, hopefully, folklorists or people who will document stories of growing up Finnish American or Finnish Canadian or anything along that list. Thank you for all of our attendees. We had over 80 people at one point, and most of them stayed along all the way to the end. We look forward to seeing you once again at FinnFest, July 26th to the 30th this year to 2023 in Duluth, Minnesota. All of the information, once again, will become available on Instagram. We'll be publishing information about different events, speakers, discussions that will be going on, and any info that you might want to find out will be available there and is already available on the website. So check the links that we put in the chat. I'm going to put one more time the link to the mailing list. There were a few questions regarding hotel rooms and special rates. There are special rates for FinnFest hotels, and that information has been sent to the mailing list, and I believe it will be sent once again. So thank you again, and we look forward to seeing you in next month's webinar. Kiitos, moikka!